Strip away the filters for a moment. Forget the polite interpretations, the excuses you've been trained to accept, the comforting narratives men tell themselves to avoid facing painful truths. When a woman speaks, most men hear only the literal sentence, but miss everything else, the hidden language vibrating underneath. Her words are the least honest part of her communication. It's her pauses, her silences, the strange timing, the way she lowers her gaze or locks it onto yours. That's where the truth lives. Most men never learn to read that language, and so they wander through relationships like blind travelers guided by the wrong map. And because they can't decode that silent dialect, they start believing that women are unpredictable, mysterious, contradictory creatures. But that belief is simply the result of illiteracy. In reality, female behavior is driven by patterns so consistent, so deeply wired, that once you learn how to interpret them, confusion dissolves instantly. You aren't lost, you're just translating the wrong alphabet. This isn't about vilifying women or creating a new ideological war. It's about awareness, about reclaiming a kind of masculine literacy that used to be passed down through generations. Once upon a time, older men educated younger ones about emotional dynamics, about female psychology, about the difference between words and intentions. That chain of mentorship was broken long ago, and men today are paying the price with heartbreak, wasted time, and misplaced loyalty. But once the fog lifts, once you understand the emotional machinery behind her behavior, everything changes. Suddenly you stop tripping over her mixed signals. You stop searching for clarity where clarity will never appear. You stop negotiating with illusions. You start living with a backbone instead of hope. You begin to operate from perception instead of projection. Before we rip apart the first lie, the one that has crippled more men than betrayal itself, there's something I want from you. Full presence. No drifting. No half listening. What I'm about to tell you is the type of truth that rewires your worldview and recalibrates how you move through every romantic encounter. And if the message hits you, share it. Support it. Because the work here isn't to entertain, it's to sharpen men who have been softened by misunderstanding. Let's begin. The first lie is the most common one. It's the lie that sounds compassionate, introspective, even noble on the surface. I'm not ready for a relationship right now. Most men hear this and feel sympathy or hope. They interpret it as emotional vulnerability, as a woman opening up about her wounds or her circumstances. Men romanticize the statement instead of dissecting it. But the real sentence, the one she's actually communicating, the one that flips the entire meaning on its head, is painfully simple. I'm not ready for a relationship with you. That missing piece changes the entire narrative. This isn't about timing. It's not about the chaos in her life. It's not about her career. It's not about needing emotional healing. Attraction does not respect calendars or life phases. When a woman genuinely desires a man, she bends time around that desire. She reorganizes her world to accommodate him. She does not postpone intimacy with a man who ignites her. She postpones intimacy with a man who feels replaceable. Most men fall right into the trap. They think her hesitancy is an invitation to prove themselves. If I wait long enough, if I'm patient enough, if I remain loyal enough, eventually she will choose me. But desire doesn't work like compound interest. It does not grow with patience. If anything, waiting erodes attraction, because waiting communicates low value, and value to a woman's subconscious is everything. There's a phrase that cuts through this delusion like a blade. Desire is instant. Hesitation is a sign. When a woman is truly drawn to you, she doesn't hesitate. She gravitates. She makes space. She makes effort. She cancels plans. She finds ways to see you instead of excuses to avoid you. Attraction dissolves obstacles. disinterest creates them. So why does she disguise rejection with softness? Why not simply say, "I don't want you"? The answer is simple: guilt. Social norms teach women to protect their image, to avoid appearing cruel, to cushion the emotional blow so she isn't burdened by your pain. If she can make you believe the problem lies in timing, healing, or self-discovery, then she walks away guilt-free while you remain trapped in false hope. It's emotional anesthesia. It numbs you enough to keep you quiet and compliant. This is why so many men become emotional storage units rather than partners. You become the safe harbour she retreats to when she's lonely, insecure, or between romantic prospects. You become the man she talks to while waiting for the man she wants. You become a placeholder, a comfort zone, a stand-in, not a lover, an emotional pantry. And by accepting this role, you extend your own suffering. You give your time, the only resource you can't reclaim, to someone who has already chosen someone else. There is a brutal law at play in these dynamics. The woman you wait for rarely waits for you. And now we cross into the second trap, a lie so seductive that it disarms even intelligent men. Money doesn't matter to me. This statement hits men right in their most sensitive insecurity, the fear that they will be judged solely on their financial worth. So when a woman whispers this line with softness, men instantly feel safe, appreciated, understood. They exhale, believing they finally found someone who values character over currency. But that belief is naive, not noble. When a woman says money doesn't matter, she isn't rejecting financial stability. She is rejecting men whose identity revolves solely around wealth. She's rejecting emotional emptiness covered in expensive packaging. She's rejecting arrogance masquerading as success. Women don't dislike wealth. They dislike men who use wealth as their entire personality. What she actually means beneath the words is far deeper. I want a man who values me more than his ego and who possesses enough competence to build a stable life. In her subconscious, money represents direction, capability, responsibility. It represents whether you can handle pressure, whether you can create order from chaos, whether you can sustain not just yourself, but a relationship, a family, a future. To her primal mind, a man without the ability to provide stability signals danger. Instability threatens survival, emotional, financial, psychological. That instinct isn't shallow, it's biological. Women do not calculate your reliability with spreadsheets. They calculate it with intuition. This is why even the most free-spirited woman feels more relaxed with a man who stands firmly on his path. It's not greed, it's safety. When she says, "Money doesn't bring happiness," she's not saying, "I will live with you in poverty forever." She means, "I can support you while you build, but I cannot follow you if you refuse to rise." Women fall in love not with money, but with competence, with ambition, with the ability to hunt the metaphorical mammoth, even in a brutal economic winter. Money itself is never the point. The point is the man who can generate value from thin air. The point is the structure in his mind, the discipline in his habits, the strategy in his actions. Men who misunderstand this fall into an even deeper hole. They take her declared simplicity as permission to stagnate. They think her acceptance of their financial state is unconditional. But her acceptance is conditional on movement, on your direction, on your evolution. If you stall, her attraction dies. And when another man appears who turns his ambition into tangible results, suddenly her indifference to money evaporates overnight. Because she was never indifferent to money. She was indifferent to greed, not to competence, not to trajectory, not to masculine ambition. A woman doesn't need your wealth, she needs your capability. And the moment another man proves himself more capable, her biology recalibrates no matter how spiritual or idealistic she claims to be. The lesson is harsh, but liberating. Her simplicity is not permission for your mediocrity. Her support during your rise is not acceptance of your stagnation. And her affection today is not a guarantee for tomorrow. Your value is not measured by your bank account. It is measured by your direction. Let's step deeper now into the territory where logic dissolves and psychology takes center stage. It is here, in this shadowed space, that we encounter the third lie, a phrase polished by repetition, sharpened by experience, and deployed with a precision that evolves through countless social interactions. It is one of the most intoxicating sentences a man can hear, because it is tailored perfectly to his deepest psychological vulnerability. I usually don't do this, but with you, it's different. On the surface, it sounds like a confession, a glimpse behind the curtain, a crack in her armor that she's allowing you, and only you, to see. But peel back the layers, and you will find that this line is not a spontaneous emotional outpouring. It is a tool, a mechanism, a device forged specifically to disarm your instincts, short-circuit your suspicions, and amplify your ego until you abandon judgment entirely. Because every man, no matter how disciplined, carries a dormant hunger to feel like the exception, to feel chosen, to feel powerful enough to shatter the barriers she supposedly upholds against the entire world. This phrase nourishes that hunger directly. It bypasses reason. It bypasses caution. It speaks straight into your pride, making you believe you're unlocking a door that has never opened for anyone else. But here's the reality most men refuse to confront. When someone loudly declares their boundaries, purity, or rules, they're preparing to violate them. People who truly hold strong principles live them silently. Those who fear breaking their principles justify them in advance. Women understand this intuitively, and they know exactly how men perceive sexual selectiveness and emotional restraint. They know men judge availability harshly, sometimes unfairly. So they build a narrative that doesn't just excuse their behavior, it elevates it. She casts herself as the virtuous heroine. She casts you as the irresistible force, and she casts the situation as a miraculous exception. This allows her to engage in whatever behavior she already intended, without damaging the image she wants you to hold of her. She shields herself from internal guilt and shields you from seeing the truth. She isn't confessing, she's preemptively rewriting the story. Women learn this tactic young, often without consciously understanding it. They pick up through observation and emotional intelligence which phrases trigger certain reactions in men. They learn which narratives preserve their reputation, which words activate the male protective instinct, which lines create excitement, intimacy, attachment, and "I usually don't do this" is among the sharpest tools in their arsenal. But let's drag the truth into the light. If she breaks her rules within hours of meeting you, those rules never existed. They are not ancient walls crumbling under the thunder of your presence. They are decorative props, like the cardboard doors of a theatre set meant to look solid from a distance but hollow in reality. There is no system glitch here. There is only pattern. Recognize this. The speed at which she becomes intimate with you is the speed at which she becomes intimate with others. You just happen to be the next one in line. This isn't cynicism, it's observation. The environment may shift, the faces may change, but the internal programming stays the same. When she uses this line, she's protecting an identity she clings to, not revealing anything rare. She's protecting the good girl branding that society taught her to value. Men get trapped because they mistake performance for revelation. They believe they have reached some secret chamber in her psyche. They believe their presence awakened something dormant in her. They believe they're the catalyst of transformation. But what they're experiencing is choreography. This is not intimacy. It's strategy, not honesty, but image maintenance, not uniqueness, but repetition. As Carl Jung famously pointed out, humans meet themselves over and over through different masks. This phrase is one of those masks, a polished persona that she presents when she wants plausible deniability for her choices. And the axiom you must tattoo onto your mind is simple. If a woman genuinely never does this, she simply won't. No spark, no chemistry, no fantasy scenario will override her core values. If you see her abandon them instantly, then those weren't values, they were props. Now let's descend into the fourth lie, the one that reveals whether you're dealing with a woman who has healed her past or one who is still chained to it. A lie that so many men accept without question, because accepting it feels safe. My ex means nothing to me. Men hear these words and breathe a sigh of relief. They relax. They think they've been handed a clean slate, a fresh emotional landscape free from old battles and ghosts. But this is where naivety becomes costly. Because if human emotions could be erased with statements, therapy wouldn't exist. Trauma wouldn't exist. Memory wouldn't impact behavior. People wouldn't carry their past into every new chapter. But the psyche isn't a computer with a delete button. It is a labyrinth, a storage system that hides unresolved wounds in deep compartments, where they continue to influence reactions, choices, fears, and desires. When she says her ex means nothing, often she isn't lying to you, she's lying to herself. She's trying to outrun the weight of memories she hasn't dealt with. Denial becomes her shield because denial feels easier than introspection. Ask yourself this: if he truly meant nothing, why mention him at all? True indifference has no emotional residue. True indifference is silent. True indifference feels like a vacuum. But when she brings him up with bitterness, mockery, nostalgia, defensiveness, or even casual references, that is not neutrality. That is evidence. Smoke rising from a fire she claims has died. When she speaks of him with emotional voltage of any kind, she unintentionally resurrects him. She summons his ghost into your conversations, your dynamic, your relationship. And the moment his name enters the room, he becomes a silent participant, a presence you're now forced to compete with. Here lies the real danger. You cannot heal a wound you didn't cause, but many men try anyway. They think they can love her pain away. They try to fix her fragmentation. They become caretakers instead of partners. They sacrifice their energy, their emotional stability, even their identity to repair damage inflicted by another man. They believe they're helping, but in reality they're drowning. Because when you join her before she heals, you're not entering a relationship, you're entering a recovery ward. You become her emotional rehabilitation center, her crisis counselor, her comfort provider, her distraction, her bandage. And there is a cruel prophecy hiding in situations like this. Once you finish healing her, she leaves, not because you failed, but because the version of herself she associates with pain does not match the version of life she wants to build next. She cannot separate you from the period of brokenness you helped her crawl out of. You become the symbol of her wounds, not her rebirth. And people rarely build their futures with symbols of their past suffering. They close that chapter, they shut that door. And often, they walk into the arms of someone new, using the emotional wholeness you helped create. You were not her partner, you were her transition. And this is why the most dangerous position a man can occupy is that of the healer. He gives the most, he receives the least, and the moment she is restored, he is left behind. If she repeats the line, "My ex means nothing to me," with too much conviction. Don't argue, don't press, don't ask for details, don't try to reassure her or validate her denial. Instead, become observational. Detach emotionally, watch her patterns, notice her reactions, listen to her silences, study her behavior when stress hits or when she faces memories. Follow the advice of Alfred Adler, one of the pioneers of depth psychology. Trust only movement. Words are theatre, actions are truth. If the ghost of the past still influences her behavior, that ghost is still alive. And as long as he is alive, you are not the king of her emotional world. You are a placeholder sitting on a borrowed throne. Now we arrive at the fifth lie, one that has quietly sabotaged more men than betrayal, heartbreak and competition combined. I want a nice guy. These words slip out of a woman's mouth like a soft melody, but for men who take them literally, they function like emotional cyanide. The irony is brutal. The phrase sounds like an invitation, yet it leads straight into a psychological trap that buries countless decent men alive. The average man hears "nice guy" and instantly imagines a checklist of agreeable traits. He thinks she wants someone kind, someone calm, someone understanding, someone safe. But in the female lexicon, the term nice lives in an entirely different dimension. Women rarely mean pleasant when they use it. They mean something much sharper, far rarer. A balance almost mythical in difficulty. What she longs for isn't a soft-hearted pushover who folds himself into whatever shape pleases her in the moment. She wants a man who carries warmth without dissolving his edges. Someone whose compassion doesn't amputate his authority. A man whose kindness rests on a foundation of power, not fear. In her world, a truly nice man is a fortress with open gates, not a pillow she can compress into nothing. This distinction annihilates thousands of men because they never catch it. They hear her words and transform themselves into servants, polite, agreeable, endlessly patient. They start carrying her emotional burdens, smoothing every conflict, bending in every storm of her mood. They perform devotion like it's a spell that guarantees loyalty. But here is the agonizing paradox. Women do not fall in love with men who orbit around them. They fall in love with men who revolve around their axis so strongly that she feels pulled into their gravity. Admiration precedes affection, and compliance kills admiration instantly. A man who treats her like a queen before she has earned that throne doesn't inspire desire, he suffocates it. He becomes background static, the safe option she respects but does not crave. She may enjoy his presence, but she does not feel electrified by it. Passion requires polarity, not worship. This is why women test men, not because they are manipulative goblins playing mind games, but because their biology has tasked them with one mission: identify whether your kindness is a mask for weakness or an extension of strength. Every boundary she pushes, every emotional gust she unleashes, every moment she becomes unpredictable is not an attack. It is a scan, a system check, a probe to determine whether your light comes from inner fire or fragile approval seeking. And when she sees a man apologizing for breathing, when she sees him shrink instead of stand, when she sees him dilute himself to appear agreeable, the feminine instinct recoils. Desire evaporates because weakness destroys polarity. A man who cannot anchor himself cannot anchor her. And a woman without an anchor becomes restless, then resentful, then gone. In her silent translation, nice means something very different. Be warm to me. Be dangerous to the world. Hold me gently. Hold your standards fiercely. Let me in, but do not collapse for me. Command yourself, or I cannot trust you to command a life. That is what she truly longs for, even if she doesn't know how to articulate it. And now we reach the sixth lie, one that shines like gold, but is often nothing more than polished brass. I'm not like other girls. At first glance, this phrase seems harmless, even flattering. Exhausted men, tired of sameness and predictability, cling to these words like fresh water after a drought. Finally, they think, someone different, someone rare, someone who stands apart from the exhausting patterns of the modern dating world. But those 6 little words are not a revelation. They are an advertisement, a marketing slogan crafted to bypass your skepticism and accelerate emotional investment. Women know, instinctively, strategically, flawlessly, that men crave uniqueness as desperately as they crave peace. She knows you're tired of repetition, of drama, of emotional déjà vu. So she sells you the fantasy up front. I am the exception. But here is the secret most men refuse to face. The very moment she says she's different, she's already proven she isn't. Authentic uniqueness never introduces itself, it simply exists. A truly rare woman doesn't broadcast her rarity because she doesn't need to. Her actions do the talking. Her consistency speaks. Her discipline, her loyalty, her grace under pressure, her integrity when unobserved. These traits whisper louder than any slogan ever could. When she makes the declaration verbally, what she's really revealing is her fear. Fear of being average. Fear of blending into the mass of women she subconsciously competes with. She's telling you she wants your perception of her to outrun the reality she has not yet demonstrated. It's brand positioning, not self-awareness. True rarity is quiet, silent, steady. It appears in the woman who doesn't react impulsively, in the woman who handles conflict with dignity, in the woman who protects your reputation in rooms you'll never enter, in the woman who refuses to tear others down just to elevate herself, in the woman whose loyalty is not a performance but a principle. That woman doesn't need to say she's unlike the others, she simply lives it. So when you hear, "I'm not like other girls," don't fall under the spell of the promise. Step back, switch into analytical mode, compare her actions to her words, evaluate whether you're dealing with genuine substance or high-resolution imitation. Ask yourself whether she is selling you greatness she hasn't demonstrated. Not yet, and maybe not ever. Because here is the connecting thread that ties every lie together. The invisible wire running beneath all 6 phrases. Women are not adversaries. They are not villains in this narrative. They're driven by instinct, by emotion, by evolutionary programming that intertwines survival and desire far more tightly than logic ever could. But the way they speak, the metaphors they use, the emotional safety nets they weave, these can create a map filled with misleading coordinates. And if a man doesn't know how to read that map, he will wander in circles through illusions he mistakes for paths. The wise man does not fight the wind. He does not scream at reality or demand linear logic from a system built on emotion. He does not become bitter or paranoid. Instead, he chooses a third option, the only one that maintains his power: observation. He stands still internally, like a lighthouse in a storm, and lets the waves reveal the truth. He doesn't rely on promises, but on patterns. He doesn't cling to words, but to consistency. He doesn't get seduced by exceptions, but by proof. He listens not just to her tone, but to her pauses. Not just to her claims, but to her behavior. Not just to her story, but to the energy she brings into the room. He sees what is said and what is unsaid. He sees the actions and the avoidance. He sees the desire and the hesitation. And with that clarity, he makes decisions that protect his future instead of sacrificing it on the altar of fantasy. If this breakdown has peeled back the veil, if you recognized even one line you've heard before, Drop your experience in the comments. Tell the story. Tell how it ended, with victory or with a scar that turned into wisdom. Every man has heard at least one of these lies. The question is whether he learned from it or collapsed under it. Before you leave, take one final step. Strength is action, not contemplation. Join the mission. Like, subscribe, connect. We're shaping a brotherhood here, a rare breed of men who don't crumble under emotion but command it. Men who do not just love, they lead. Men whose silence carries more authority than another man's shouting. Men whose standards are iron gates. Men whose self-control shields their destiny far better than pretty words whispered in the heat of the moment. This is where the next generation of men is forged, in awareness, in discipline, in the refusal to be blinded by illusions. And those who walk this path are no longer prey to emotional storms. They become the ones who chart their own horizon.